reading from the Holy Bible. We're in the Gospel of Matthew. If you're new to my channel, I'm on a mission to share every single chapter of the New Testament, make a video recording. And the reason is I just want to share the life-changing words of God. I want more people to hear, people that have heard and read before. I want them to re-engage with these powerful words. So on we go. Our last reading was from chapter 10, and today we're reading, I think, a really profound chapter. Take some thinking about, take some understanding, and I'm not sure I'm there. So here we go. Chapter 11, the Gospel according to Matthew, King James Version. Jesus reassures John. And it came to pass, when Jesus had made an end of commanding his 12 disciples, he departed thence to teach and to preach in their cities. Now when John had heard in the prison the works of Christ, he sent 2 of his disciples, and said unto him, Art thou he that should come, or do we look for another? Jesus answered and said unto them, Go and show John again those things which you do hear and see. The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear, the dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospel preached to them. And blessed is he whosoever shall not be offended in me. And as they departed, Jesus began to say unto the multitudes concerning John, What went ye out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken with the wind? But what went ye out for to see? A man clothed in soft raiment? Behold, they that wear soft clothing are in the king's houses. But what went ye out for to see? A prophet? Yea, I say unto you, and more than a prophet. For this is he, of whom it is written, Behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare thy way before thee. Verily, I say unto you, among them that are born of women, there hath not risen a greater than John the Baptist. For notwithstanding, he that is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. And from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violence take it by force. For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John. And if you will receive it, this is Elias, which was for to come. He that hath ears to hear, let him hear. But whereunto shall I liken this generation? It is like unto children sitting in the markets, and calling unto their fellows, and saying, We've piped unto you, and ye have not danced. We've mourned unto you, and ye have not lamented. For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say, He hath a devil. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they said, Behold, a man gluttonous and a wine-bibber, a friend of publicans and sinners. But wisdom is justified of her children. Then began he to upbraid the cities wherein most of his mighty works were done, because they repented not. Woe unto thee, Chorazin! Woe unto thee, Bethsaida! For if the mighty works which were done in you had been done in Tyre or Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. But I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon at that day of judgment than for you. And thou, Capernaum, which art exalted unto heaven, shalt be brought down to hell. For if the mighty works which have been done in thee had been done in Sodom, it would have remained until this day. But I say unto you that it shall be more tolerable for the land of Sodom in the day of judgment than for thee. At that time Jesus answered and said, I thank thee, O Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because thou hast hid these things from the wise and prudent, and hast revealed them unto babes. Even so, Father, for so it seems good in thy sight. All things are delivered unto me of my Father, and no man knoweth the Son but the Father, neither knoweth any man the Father save the Son, and he to whomsoever the Son will reveal him. Come unto me, all ye that labour and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. It's a powerful, powerful chapter, and I've mused and mused on parts of this verse. I like to share my thoughts, and some of it's for selfish reasons, I have to confess. I've done most of my Bible study on my own, and it's easy to get trapped up in your own way of thinking about things, and I do have a look at different commentaries to help me along my way. But when I first kind of came up with the idea of creating these videos, I kind of dreamed in my head that I'd have people read along with me and they'd actually help me with some of the understanding. So if you've made it this far and you're going to stick with me to the end of the video, I really would like your help. If you've got anything to offer in terms of understanding of this particular chapter and these verses, I'd really welcome your insight. I think the bit that struck me most, and I turned to different commentaries and they didn't really help. First of all, Jesus reassures John. And it's a difficult one to get. I found that quite difficult to get my head around, because John the Baptist, of all people, he's prophesied. He's got that miraculous start in life. You know, he's born to be the forerunner of the Messiah. You think of all people he would recognise and know exactly who the Messiah is, who Christ is. And in fact, in earlier chapters, he absolutely does. You know, one glance at Jesus and he knew who he was. He announced Jesus to his disciples and he said, you know, here, it's the Lamb of God. So on the one level, you know, John should need absolutely no reassurance. But some of the commentaries point out that, you know, at this point, John is in prison, as the verse reveals to us. And maybe in his isolation, he's finding it difficult. But there's more to that in terms of the context. And we're kind of reminded that Matthew's gospel is going out for the ears of the Jewish audience. All of the Gospels, I mean, they're written for all of us. We all have something to learn from the Gospels, but they're very much written with a focus on a particular audience. And Matthew is initially going out to that audience of Jewish hearers, those Jews with an ear to hear and eyes to see. And that's kind of part of the theme that runs through this chapter. But as we begin to travel and traverse through Jesus's ministry, what becomes very self-evident is there's a chasm opening up. There's a split between believers and non-believers, those who are accepting Jesus Christ as the Messiah and those that are rejecting them. And of course, I think sometimes we're guilty of seeing that as a split between Jew and Gentile. So it becomes very apparent that, you know, Gentiles are accepting Jesus Christ, whereas the Pharisees and the scribes aren't. And you're tending to think, you know, that's Jews aren't accepting him, Gentiles are. But that's not really the case, is it? Because some Jews are hearing. These 12 disciples are all Jewish disciples, so clearly some Jewish people are hearing. They have ears to hear. John the Baptist is a Jewish descendant. He traces his ancestry back to Abraham, and of course back through Abraham back to Adam, and that's how the Gospel of Matthew begins, doesn't it, with that genealogy. We're reminded of the heritage there, and we're reminded that the Old Testament is God's relationship with his chosen people in terms of covenant. So at this point, the Jewish audience are very much tied to the prophecy and the writings of the Old Testament. And they're really, all of their hopes, all of their worship, all of their understanding is very much wound up in this concept of a Messiah. A Messiah will come, and a Messiah will redeem us and set us free, set us apart, make us a great nation amongst men, put us at the pinnacle of the world in terms of supremacy. That's what they're expecting from their Messiah. But Jesus, he's come and he's meek and he's mild, and he's talking about love thy neighbour. He loves publicans as much as he does anybody in the synagogue. He loves sinners that aren't even Jewish more than he seems to love the scribes and the Pharisees. This just isn't playing out in the minds of some people the way they anticipated it to be. They thought the Messiah was going to gallop in on a horse with a sword, defeat the Roman Empire, to leave the Israelites sitting happy, high and proud. And that's not what's going on. But it seems to me they haven't understood. They haven't understood, because you go back and you read Isaiah, and it's a story of God, lamenting the behaviour of his chosen people. And this is part of the coming of the Messiah story that they seem to have missed. And Jesus is starting to really shine a light on the fact that God wants you to turn to him. God has always wanted you to turn to him. If you're not serving God, then you're not part of his kingdom. So Jesus comes along, and it seems to the Jewish audience that he's turning the tables on them. And it seems to me that Jesus is saying, you've misinterpreted God's kingdom. You've redefined God's kingdom. You've redefined the will of God. I haven't come to change the prophecies. I am fulfilling the prophecies, but I'm fulfilling them in a way that you don't recognise. See in verse 12, and from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. I've delved into different commentaries on this, but this seems to, and this is where I need your help. I might be reading more into this. I might be seeing something that isn't there. But this relates to me. This is Jesus really talking about this misinterpretation of what the prophets have been saying all along. The prophets, and essentially God through the prophets, has been trying to describe who he is and what his kingdom is and what his kingdom will be. And it's been misinterpreted. And in a way, that's kind of like taking God's kingdom by force. And it seems to speak to me of this concept of God's chosen people completely misinterpreting and mishearing what the prophecies have said. They haven't had the ears to hear. They haven't had the eyes to see. Their wisdom is flawed. They are like children that haven't understood, despite the fact that they've been spoon-fed by the prophecies and the prophets. They simply haven't understood. John the Baptist has identified Jesus as the Messiah, the Lamb of God. But many of the people that have flocked to John the Baptist are excited, crazy excited about the idea of the Messiah who has finally come to deliver them. Essentially, the Messiah that has finally come to serve them. And it's when Jesus talks about, you're like children in the marketplace. Verse 16, he says, but whereunto shall I liken this generation? It's like unto the children sitting in the markets and calling unto their fellows and saying, we have piped unto you and you have not danced. We have mourned unto you and you have not lamented. It's basically saying, come on, Messiah, do your stuff. Serve us as you've promised to serve us. Dance, do it. Come on, get rid of the Romans, set us free. Jesus just isn't the Messiah that they expected, because they haven't heard the prophecies as the prophecies were meant to hear, and they're not seeing what's happening in a way that they should be seeing. So that it seems to me that yes, it's about reassuring. It could be, there are different interpretations here. If you've got anything to add to help me out with these verses, I'd be really glad to hear them. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.